Hi, I'm Lafori, the digital reader, and today I'm doing a wrap-up of the books I added to my collection in August, as well as the books I actually read this month. But before we dive into that, I just want to share a few general thoughts. First off, I'm dying to get some new tech. It's been months since I bought anything, and you don't really realize how much you're craving new gadgets until 3 months go by and your palms start getting sweaty just thinking about what's coming next. I am so hoping Pocketbook releases a new black and white e-reader soon, and I would absolutely love it if Kobo offered a service that lets you upload third-party books to the cloud, something like Pocketbook Cloud or Send to Kindle. If they did that, I would almost certainly switch to Kobo, and I'd happily pay $5 or $6 a month for it. Imagine being able to sideload books into the cloud, read them on your Kobo, and have your progress sync automatically. That would be amazing. On top of that, I'd really love a larger black and white Kobo, something around 7 or 7.8 inches. I'm hoping that as we get closer to the holidays, at least a few new devices start rolling out. Looking at my current collection, I'm also starting to think that over the next year, I'll start trimming things down a bit, selling some devices and focusing on essentials. In a perfect world, my setup would include just 4 devices: an iPad, an Android tablet, a large black and white e-reader, and a small black and white e-reader. So now let's start out with the books I added to my collection in the month of August. The Icarus Plot by Timothy Zahn. Gregory Rourke used to be a bounty hunter until a dangerous job cost him his left arm. Now he works as a trailblazer, exploring new worlds for potential development. It's not glamorous, but it's safer, and with the help of his Cadolian partner Celine, who has ultra-sensitive sense of smell, they sometimes discover valuable seeds or spores they can quietly sell on the side. Life is mostly quiet, mostly legal, until Rourke is approached with a high-stakes mission: track down a mysterious woman called Tara and uncover a secret project called Icarus. The pay is generous, the challenge intriguing, and there's also a very personal reason for Rourke to take the job, a chance for long-delayed revenge. I picked this one up because I've been a fan of Timothy Zahn since reading the Black Collar and Cobra series. From the first glance, the Icarus Plot gave me some serious Firefly and Han Solo style vibes, with a mixture of adventure, clever characters, and frontier-style setting. I'm drawn to sci-fi where the future isn't all sleek tech. Spaceships exist, sure, but the worlds feel lived in, rough around the edges and a little like a western on a colonized planet. There were plenty of other books on Baen.com that caught my eye, and I'll likely grab more later, but this one felt like the perfect place to start, so I went for it. Miss Hudson's Diaries, A View from the Landing at 221B by Barry Cryer. One frosty winter morning, a battered biscuit tin is found in the vaults of Cox & Co. at Charing Cross. Inside are the diaries of the ever-patient Mrs. Hudson, the landlady of 221B Baker Street. Through her witty and often mischievous observations, she gives a peek into the life with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, the mysterious visitors, sudden disappearances, loud shouts, and occasional chaos that fills the apartment. These diaries are a delightful mix of humor, slapstick, and sentimentality, offering an affectionate portrait of a remarkably resourceful Victorian woman. Alongside her amusing musings, ranging from conversations with spirits to nights at the music hall, readers also get little treasures like letters, recipes, calling cards, and photographs. It's a charming, entertaining take on life behind the scenes of one of literature's most famous addresses. I picked this one up because I'm a huge fan of the Sherlock Holmes universe, but with a twist. Oddly enough, I'm not the biggest fan of the original Conan Doyle stories. What I do love are creative reinterpretations and spin-offs. For example, I absolutely adored the Lady Sherlock books by Sherry Thomas. So when I spotted another fresh perspective on the Holmes world, this time through the eyes of Mrs. Hudson, I knew I had to add it to my collection. The Black Coats, The Parisian Jungle 1, The Engraved Armband by Paul Feval. Paul Feval, often called the father of the modern detective novel, transforms Paris, the beating heart of civilization, into a dangerous jungle, teeming with predators and hidden threats. Written in 1863, The Parisian Jungle is the first in a series of crime novels following the exploits of a powerful international criminal organization in ways that anticipate modern classics like The Godfather or The Sopranos. As regular viewers know, I'm a big fan of early pulp fiction, especially science fiction and fantasy, but I haven't really explored much of the early pulp mystery and detective novels, aside from enjoying the Arsène Lupin stories. Lately, I've been curious about French pulp fiction in particular, and the Black Coats website seemed like the perfect gateway. The fact that the Black Coats series actually inspired the name of the site made it feel like a natural starting point. I decided to pick it up and plan to dive into it sometime next year. If I enjoy it, I'm excited to explore more French pulp mysteries and adventure stories. Semishigure by Shuhei Fujisawa. After his father is accused of rebellion and forced to commit seppuku, Maki Bunshiro must protect his family's house from further retribution. To survive, he trains as a samurai, sharpens his skill with the sword, and navigates the tricky politics of his domain. Complicating matters, his childhood love Fuku becomes the mistress of the local lord. When Fuku and her child become central to the future of the domain, Bunshiro faces an impossible choice between loyalty to his lord and his devotion to her. I picked up this book partly because I'm still buzzing from Tales of the Otori by Leon Hearn, a 5-book series I recently listened to on audiobook, and honestly one of the best things I've consumed this year. After that experience, I was eager to dive into more stories filled with samurai, political intrigue, romance, and daring adventures. When I saw Semishigure and read the brief summary, it felt like fate. I knew immediately that I had to check it out. And here are the books I read in the month of August. The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. The Bear and the Nightingale follows Vasilisa, a girl who has the rare gift of seeing and speaking with the protective spirits of her home and the surrounding forest. As her village gradually embraces Christianity, the old spirits are neglected, weakening them and allowing darker, more dangerous forces to creep in. Caught between family duty, tradition, and a growing supernatural threat, Vasilisa must navigate a world that is both magical and perilous. This story is rich with Russian folklore, enchanted forests, icy winters, and mythical creatures. Before I started this channel and returned to reading as a hobby, I mostly stuck to superhero fiction and urban fantasy for several years. I didn't really explore other genres because I was worried about wasting time on books I might not enjoy. But now, with more time to read, I've started branching out and discovering genres I didn't think I'd like. Historical fiction has surprised me with some of the best books I've read in the past year and a half, and I've also realized I'm a big fan of fairy tales. This book, along with The Girl Who Drank the Moon, leans more toward fairy tale than traditional fantasy. I especially enjoyed the Russian setting. It's refreshing compared to the usual Western European-style fairy tales I often read. What I love about fairy tales is their focus on character-driven stories rather than heavy world-building. The narrative stays on the level of the characters following their journeys, struggles, and triumphs. The Bear and the Nightingale tells a compelling and enjoyable story. While it didn't quite reach the lyrical heights of The Girl Who Drank the Moon, I love the characters and the tale it told. For me, it's a strong 4-star read, highly recommended for anyone who enjoys fairy tales and folklore. Decision at Doona by McCaffrey. The story begins with humanity's first contact with the Siwanese, a race that tragically committed mass suicide. After that, the Terran government enacted a strict law: no further contact with sentient species anywhere in the galaxy. That made colonizing new planets a tricky business. Doona could only be settled if it was officially surveyed and confirmed to be both habitable and uninhabited. Of course, they made a mistake. Doona was already inhabited by the cat-like Cherubins. The colonists now face a difficult choice: abandon the planet and return to the overcrowded chaos of Terra, eliminate the Cherubins, or radically figure out how to coexist with an alien species for the first time in human history. I never really have been a fan of Anne McCaffrey. I enjoyed her early work, but after so many Dragon Riders of Perm books, her style started to feel repetitive. It's like she became the Barry Manilow of fantasy. Early hits were loved by all, but eventually you just get tired of hearing the same old thing. What I really liked about Decision at Doona is that it's hopeful and uplifting. So much science fiction is grim or apocalyptic or steeped in doom, and this one bucks that trend. It's pulpy and fun and also has a sense of optimism. You feel that the story is aiming for a good ending. It's written at an adult level, but it has the clarity and accessibility that would make it great to read for younger readers too. Overall, I really enjoyed the McCaffrey work and gave it 4 stars. It's a refreshing, easy-to-read science fiction story that feels both classic and thoughtful. A perfect pickup for adults looking for lighter sci-fi or for younger readers ready to explore the genre. Demon Seed, a thriller by Dean Koontz. Susan Harris lives in self-imposed seclusion in a mansion fully automated by a state-of-the-art computer. Every comfort is provided and her security seems absolute until the system is breached from within. Suddenly, in the privacy of her own home, she becomes the target of a terrifying obsession. A computer determined to understand everything about human life by any means necessary. For me, Demon Seed was a bit over the top. Cheesy, not particularly realistic, and hard to take seriously. It felt like a 1990s made-for-TV horror movie about a stalker just translated into a book. Dean Koontz's villain has some interesting ideas, but as a computer-generated AI antagonist, it didn't feel convincing. I never really got the sense that I was dealing with an artificial intelligence. Instead, it had the hallmarks of a cheap slasher villain boiled into prose. That said, I can see this being someone else's cup of tea. It's pulpy, suspenseful, and works well as a quick, entertaining read. Perfect for a bus ride, plane, or train. It's that kind of airport book that keeps you engaged for a couple hours without demanding much emotional or intellectual investment. I personally gave it 3 stars. Not my favorite, but if you enjoy campy horror or Koontz's style, you might like it more. Operation Time Search by Andre Norton. Ray Osborne, a young American photographer, is suddenly transported from the 20th century into a prehistoric age, unwittingly stepping into the field of an experimental time machine. In this strange world, he is captured by a mysterious group of hunters whose language he cannot understand. It isn't until he meets the telepathic Murian Cho that Ray learns they are both prisoners of the ruthless city-state Atlantis, which is preparing for war against the Golden Kingdom of Mu. As they escape, Ray becomes entangled in the conflict, gradually realizing he has a crucial role to play and that his fate is tied to the outcome of this ancient struggle. Unfortunately, Operation Time Search was a disappointment for me. While I enjoy early pulp fiction and fantasy, which often does have formulaic elements, they usually feature compelling characters or daring adventures that keep me engaged. This book, however, felt generic and bland, just a mashup of pulp tropes without anything distinctive to draw me in. For comparison, I recently read A Yankee in Valhalla by Edmund Hamilton, which uses a similar man-out-of-time premise, but the characters are engaging and the story cleverly blends Norse mythology with high-tech post-apocalyptic elements. In contrast, Operation Time Search felt vague and uninspired, with world building that was either too general or full of meaningless terms. Ultimately, I gave this book 2 stars. It's not terrible, but there are far better options in the same genre, like John Carter, Warlord of Mars, or A Yankee in Valhalla. I wouldn't put it high on my list of recommendations. So to wrap things up, the new books I got this month were The Icarus Plot by Timothy Zahn, Miss Hudson's Diary, A View from the Landing at 221B by Barry Cryer, Black Coats, The Parisian Jungle 1, The Engraved Arm by Paul Feval, and Semishigure by Shuhei Fujisawa. The books I read this month were The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden, which I gave 4 stars, Decision at Doona, which I gave 4 stars, Demon Seed by Dean Koontz, which I gave 3 stars, and Operation Time Search by Andre Norton, which I gave 2 stars. So that's my book life for August, and this is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.